Hello everyone, Blue Star Saber here once again to do another One Piece chapter review. Granted, I still have a bit of a cold and my voice is probably affected by this, so I have no idea how this is going to play out, but I feel like I gotta review these chapters at some point and I need to catch up, especially when the chapter's especially when we're on a break week, so it's like gives me an opportunity to at least somewhat catch up. So yeah, I'm pretty much covering chapter 1167, which is titled Ida's Sons. And this chapter is basically following the events of the last chapter, in which we saw how Rox was killed by Figurine Garland after being the dummy reverse effects removed from him. How the Roger pirates got Shanks. How all the other pirates went their separate ways. How Loki reacted to Rox's death, and how Howl did in making his vows to put and Ritzy finally pulling out his horns to work with the world government, even if it meant becoming a slave, arguably probably sealing his inevitable fate, if you will. So yeah. What will the world government be doing? What will the world government be doing to Harold, which will eventually lead to his inevitable end by the hands of his own son? Well, we might find out some of the answers in this chapter, though. Granted, by the title, it seems like we might finally find out the fate of Ida. But before we get into the events of the chapter, we've got the cover story, which is reader's request: Jen and Noguchi scolding a cat trying to steal a book, but it's not really mad, by Ideal Sanji, which I'm wondering if that, let's see, it seems to be a bit of a Sanji fanboy. But basically, we see a cat stealing a book on fish, being chased by the owner of the bookstore. But both Najiko and Gena let's see, but they seem to be enjoying the cat's antics. Let's see, with Nachiko even blushing, if you will, if from the looks of it. This is clearly a reference to the fact that Nami would steal books when she was young, as there's often associated cats with Nami, so you can see it's they're treating it like a little Nami, if you will. So yeah, it's nice little cover. Nice to see these two characters, especially since Nami was asked about her adopted mother earlier in the arc. So yeah. Not saying that these two will play a role at the moment, but who knows? Maybe we'll learn some more Nami development, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, I have gone on long enough about that. Time for the actual chapter review, if you will. So let's see. No more of this cover. The chapter begins with a young big news Morgan's gang events from 33 years ago, 5 years after God Valley, where this person's talking about how they were talk about how these pirates were being attacked by this giant, enormous figure behind them, and behind some sort of mist, as he's writing down notes. And you see other places talk about it, especially in the Imperial Down prison. A guy talking about how his ship was splattered by this monster. Let's see. People laughed. It was like a Neptunian, but they said no, it looked like a human. And then you get more people reporting it from other journalists, with one saying this didn't really take place in the Foreign Triangle, and the guy with the sailor saying nope, not even close, saying that it was a monster in human form, if you will. And we see the shadowy figure here. Let's see, as the narration goes about how times the countries would be, let's see, at this time the countries across the Grand Line were buzzed about this frightening rumor of a monster, mostly targeting pirate ships. And of course, as you could probably all guess, this monster is probably none other than King Harold here. Let's see, sinking pirate ships, but for most people, it seems they've never seen a giant at sea before, so this is just a pure terror of a monster. And apparently he was doing this as a part of his sworn oath of 1,000 years of atonement. Basically helping up the Navy sort of efforts to uphold orders, basically showing him as a sort of unofficial Marine, if you will. And during this time, we basically see the narration goes about the pirates who scattered after the events of God Valley, particularly the Yonko here, would grow in power to the next decade and become the faces of their era. So yeah, we see the Yonko, which are basically Rox's three most powerful subordinates, maybe also along with Shiki. So yeah, and as we also see Shiki here and Wang Ji, who eventually took over Hachinosu. So before Blackbeard took over that after Rocky Port. As narration goes, like while all the pirates, all the while the pirates around them focused on claiming territory. As basically, I think this is implying that the Yonko were the top and Shiki and Wang Ji were just below them. Granted, I think Shiki would probably been the closest to being the Yonko, but of course he got beaten before that title was officially given. As we get the narration says, one crew achieved the impossible, and across the Grand Line throughout the globe, which of course we know is none other than the Roger Pirates here. Let's see, led by Gold Roger, and apparently he also talks about how when he was executed, the world government would serve as a demonstration of their strength, but instead, the allure of his treasure, the One Piece, sent the world into an era of pirates, and it's revealed as a result of this reaction from pirates, if you will. The world government. In order to deal with this unforeseen era, if you will, of great piracy, they recruited over a dozen giants from various regions across the world in hopes of blustering their forces. As we see, these are young Marine version cadets of the giant squad we saw at Marineford. While Howard, meanwhile, who had been faithfully serving as a tool of the Navy, as we cut to Mary Josa with many of the world nobles thinking that what a huge giant it was, thinking they want it as a slave. Something it's an ancient giant, and we see that he is none other than Harold is none other than talking to none other, having a meeting with the five elders, where he's been finally given official access to the Holy Land, and he's been given this something, and he's talking about being given a Shallows Covenant. And it seems he is none other as Saint Topham Walkery says, that you have now been trusted with the weapon of the Holy Knight's God, and has become basically a devoted blade, which seems to be some sort of junior God's Knight. With him talking about it to being an honor, with them explaining that it has 3 stages with the 5 elders, if you will. With the 5 elders going here about it's the shallow covenant is mere but a trace of the bond, and saying the Death Covenant and the Abysmal Covenant are reserved for only 13 exclusive individuals who can enter in a contract with the true God. And Howard is confused by what is this God you speak of, which seems to imply that only the 5 elders and the 5 elders and, well, I believe 8 holy knights can exist at one time, which makes me wonder, because there's been from what we can see, Oda's been doing 9 sort of holy knights from what we can see. Though granted, perhaps maybe that might be an error on his part, but we'll see. I will get more on that in the thought process there later. But the threat scene as Jiro goes if the day should come, you will make a proper night, and you know the truth of the depths of the world. With Howard saying, if that's when Elbaf will be allowed to join the government, with Saint Saturn saying, of course, and saying it'll be announced to the world and you will be welcomed. With him saying, I am grateful for this honor and I'll do anything that you ask of me. Anyway, on a second, just need to drink some water. And then we cut to a much more now older Figaland Garland, and it seems like he has either maybe officially got the title of Command of the Holy Knights, Figaland St. Garland, as we're at the Sandra's Knights Temple, the land of the gods, where Howard is going to meet them. With him thinking, what is the Great One thinking? With Saint Summers, a younger version of him, and a younger version of Shamrock, which I have not taken pictures of, but yeah. Well, an older version of Summers, but not necessarily as old as we see in the current time skip. But yeah, with him asking, can Elbaf really take orders? With Howard saying, of course, your word is my command. With Garland going like, we'll call you if we need you. Trying to keep a long distance transponder snail on person. Saying that you're free to visit the lower world, but you will not speak a word of what goes on here. With him saying he understands. And then let's see, we see 20 years ago to Fishman Island, the Ryuga Kingdom, where we see let's see Harold with King Neptune, if you will, and they're having a laugh, talking about how long it's been since they had such a good laugh, and of them saying the same to you. We're wondering how too many troubles on our minds. With Neptune talking about, let's see, very doubts that his son is some kind of demon child. I mean, he can't possibly be worse than you were, with Harold laughing. Let's see, when you put it that way, with Neptune saying, actually, a fortune teller told me that I would receive a daughter for years from now. What do you say we can betroth your Loki to my daughter? Which I think surprises Harold. Let's see, with him going like, you should forget about it. Saying, I'm not talking about any ordinary mermaid. Supposedly she might be born with wild, destructive powers. With Harold saying, if that's the case, it sounds like a match made in heaven. Let's have a toast to the future of my little brat and your shaggy daughter. With Neptune saying, she will not be shaggy, which I'm going to get into the events down the line. Let's see about that. Let's see a bit later. And, but yeah. As then we as we see a sort of young let's see, Queen Hotohime with let me just find it. With a young Queen Hotohime with like a young let's see, I've forgotten his. Let me just remember his name. It's been a while. Neptune brothers, Neptune family. Oh yeah, Fukaboshi, and I believe a young. Nope, not Ramboshi. Mamaboshi. Yeah, I believe that is a young Ramaboshi. So yeah, we see he's been born. I think his other brothers also existed, but no. At the moment, 3 of the 4 siblings are born. So yeah. But anyway, on a second. Oops, wrong page. We see that in Elbaf, the Owl Library of Elbaf. Let's see. We see that Sol has, started to settle in with Harold welcoming him to do so. And he wanted to ask him something, and he wondered like that, and he's wondering what it is, and asked if he would he join the educated of Elbaf and open a school here, which arguably show Harold's laying the foundations of the school that we saw now that helped cultivate the young. with Sol being open to the idea. And then we see now 15 years ago with the on whoops, wrong page. 15 years ago with the event that would shock the Holy Land itself, where Fisher Tiger has escaped and wondering like they're broken their own cages and telling them world noble asking them to try and get their chains. We see Fisher Tiger running about with him running, and he seems to encounter a God's Knight, and it looks very much like Shanks or Shamrock as he breaks the chain. With this God Knight saying, "I've left the armory unlocked. Here's how to get there." And as a result, we see him sort of begin his sort of rampage and blowing up, wondering if, like, is that gunpowder? With Mitzi, the Stritzy, Boa's sisters telling her to hurry, saying that someone's come, they're fighting for us, and they can escape. And then we see, of course, a young Kohler as another slave telling Kohler we're getting out of there. As the narration says, this incident caused by the future captain of the Sun Pirates. Fisher Tiger was known as the ransacking of Sacred Mejouar. So we see the slaves escaping and all that. And then we cut to the next bit where Harold ends up meeting with him, talk about how it sounds like it was quite a night. Let's see what Summer saying. We're thinking someone from our side might have opened up the armory to them. So they're looking into for the rat right now and put him to death. With Garling introducing Harold to like his son Shanks, who seems to have joined the God's Knights, if you will. Saying how he's the younger brother of Shamrock, separated after birth, going on about how he's been through the gauntlet of the lower world, but has managed to if entered into the Depths Covenant, he'll be instantly boosted, likely to be at the level of Shamrock. Saying that for the time being, we'll use him as a devoted blade of God, like, let's see, Harold. With him saying, I thought the same thing with Shamrock at first, but have we met before? With Shanks saying, I don't know, you great Lumberg peon. How dare you speak to me as if we're equals? I've always had the blood of the Garland in my veins. Mark my words. Let's see. I will be a knight before you, as this is young Shanks, and we see he's got bandages, seemingly finding on the wounds from Blackbeard, if you will. With Howard going like, "Oh my mistake," but Shanks is closing her eyes, seeming implied that he did not really want to say those words. And then we've got oops, let's see. Let's see, Shanks and Shamrock working together. Let's see, Shanks introduced as the devoted blade of God for Garland family, Saint Shanks. And Shamrock as Holy Knight of God for Garland family, Saint Shamrocks. As, let's see, Shamrock has got long bangs, Shanks does not. With, let's see, Shanks saying to his brother, let's go, Shamrock. Tell me more about the Holy Land. As he wants to be the hero who captures the one responsible for the attack. Any clues? With Shamrock saying, there's still time to do this once your wounds is healed, Shanks. Saying, you don't know how it's Shanks going, you don't know how it feels to learn that you've wasted 24 years of your life. I always knew I was different from the others. I hated everything down there. But Howard looks around and notices something, let's see, something about Shanks, thinking that he might be lying. But anyway, I think we also see a bunch of world nobles going all swoon eyes for both Shamrock and Shanks here. So, yeah. So Shanks is basically playing the role of like a lost son who hated the Holy Land, if you will. So we all know his stick, but yeah. But let's see, we then cut back to Elbaf, and Ida is basically revealed to be sick, if you will, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. The narration goes like, the year Fishman that year the Fisherman Village, with you're seeing people talk about how they've tried to do. Let's see, don't know enough about medicine, saying they should try and call Al to send a doctor. With her saying no, he's busy with his job, and let's see, wondering like what's a government connection if it can't be good for, and you see a ill Ida to saying, "I'll just watch. She'll get better on her own." With the giant doctor saying, "Seems you're getting worse by the day." And how it would be heartbreaking to see you like this. With her telling Marketo to run the bar, but she doesn't want to while Ida's sick. With the giant saying, asking, "Do you know what Hal does when he comes home?" He tells how he visits all the elders and asks, let's see if he can make Ida his true wife. But she just laughs at the idea, thinking that she's fine with like meeting all the sailors from far off lands, saying it feels like he's helping him out in his own is that she's helping him out in his own way. With Marta just saying to Etsy, but then you hear Loki shouting, "Yeah, you're outside a hag," and oh yeah, I should probably get to Loki's thing. Hold on. Yeah, we see a younger Loki here. Let's see, with some fresh meat, a knocked out bull saying that here's something to feed you with, and saying that the bar's a nice chill place for me to hang out, so he says you need to open it again. With the Doctor Giant saying since Loki's gone so bigger, he's still the same brat as always. And we then see him cut to like we see the new giant warrior pirates of Hadruden, if you will. With him talking about how Ida seems to be the only one that can tame the little beast. And so Julian's off to overseas to search for a doctor for her. So he talks about how both your sons have a lot of love with you, with Ida saying, "You're making a big deal out of nothing," saying she's just fine, but thinks it's just real sweet of them, though. And then we catch this double page spread where he goes like Brewer's Villages, which is apparently Loki's mother's hometown. And Loki's going like, "Huh? What you say?" As a bunch of those giants says, I said we don't want that outsider woman becoming the queen. Saying you agree with that, right, Loki? Saying that Estrid was the true queen. She's from our people, and they can't take away our fortunes and status. And this one giant reveals that we gave her a little bit of poison, with a bunch of the others smiling. Saying these Agot spores won't stop once they've taken root. Saying it's certain death. And the giant, let's see, doctor saying Motto to get in touch with Howard at once. With Ada saying, "It doesn't matter if we're not blood related or not. Loki's my dear sweet little boy, just like a Jordan." And we see Loki starting to beat up, let's see, some of the other giants. He's broken the arm of like the one who poisoned her, with him begging Loki to stop. With Loki saying, "Ada ain't gonna die, is she?" As he grabs that giant by the neck. As we see the entire Red Sea village is burnt in flames. Loki goes like, "I remember what my real mother did. She cast me out into the trees, into the underworld, saying, 'You want fortune, you people make me sick. Ada ain't gonna die, because she,'" as he remembers a memory of her saying that, Loki just looks lonely, saying, "You want to live with us?" As Loki declares, "The only mother I have," showing that Loki's true feelings revealed. As that ends the chapter, as Loki is basically on a rampage on his biological's mother's sea village and relatives because they poisoned the one mother he actually loved, ending the chapter. Okay, and now that is let's see, finished. I can now start giving my overall thoughts. I need to be quicker in these summaries, I know. But anyway, first off, I do like that the chapter begins with like all these rumors of Elba, of this giant monster spreading about people just reporting it to the journalists, pirates talking about it in prisons, or sailors seeing it, trying to figure out what this monster is. They've never seen anything like it, but they say it looks human. But it turns out, of course, to be none other than King Harold, who most people haven't really seen a giant, if you will. So they don't know that it's actually, so they don't know about them. So it allows them to do the mystery monsters, and there's always like these shadowy figures in the sea that people don't quite understand, such as the Sandorians and Sky Island, if you will, with that mystery. So yeah, but let's see. Basically, Howder's just helping the Navy take down pirate ships. So in a sense, he's like an unofficial Marine, which arguably, if he was a Marine, he'd probably be Admiral rank or even Fleet Admiral level, if you will. So if they would allow it, but no. Since he's doing a bit of form of penitence, he's just mostly assisting, if you will. But basically, he's become a full-on government dog. But let's see, of course, we see the rise of I do like how the world government the narration talks about the rise of like those that would become Yonko, and then confirming that Shiki and Wang Ji are like basically the two pirates above them. But of course, we know it's the Roger Pirates that came up top, and it's finally we got Buggy in the flashback, but only like a cameo. For those who are hoping a bit more of a role for Buggy, I think they're disappointed, but I'm pretty certain the flashback is all but confirmed that he is not the son of Rock. So, for those who are wanting the son of Rock, flash confirmation for Buggy, yeah, I don't think that's happening. Now, Buggy might have some connection to Rocks with some visual symbolism that Oda is showing, but no, I don't think he is. But yeah. But of course, Roger, of course, is the Great Pirate Age, and we learn that as a result, more giants were allowed to join in the Marines. So it's nice to learn a bit more about the origin of like the giant squad in Marines and how they joined. We know how John Giant joined via this Albar flashback earlier, but also we learned that Mother Caramo did some sort of work in that as well. Which I have to admit, I'm a bit surprised that we never got to see Mother Caramo in this flashback, but oh well, I guess it is what it is. So, but yeah, I do like how let's see, with the pirate era becoming so chaotic, the Marines just had to recruit giants from various countries across the world in order to try and combat that, which makes sense because I know that some people might view the giant squad as a bit of a joke since many of them got their butts whooped by either Whitebeard or and one of them, I think, against Luffy, who's a Wookiee pirate. But remember, most pirates are not on the level of like Whitebeard, Oars Jr., or even rookies on the level of like Luffy, if you will. So let's see. These giants would be much stronger than, let's see, most pirates, and they would do a very effective job in taking down anyone that isn't like top tier. So yeah. And we also saw how powerful the giants were against Marines, Buster Call forces. Let's see in the previous arc. But yeah. Anyway, I like how we've now started to learn a bit more about the ranks of the Gods Knights, if you will, as the five elders, as revealed. How does to my surprise, was actually a member of the Gods Knights, or at least tried to join the organization, and he's become what is known as a Devoted Blade. And apparently, there is the Devoted Blade, which has got the contract of Shell's Covenant, which is just more of like, I guess, a trace of the bond, and there's a much more bigger depths, like the Depths Covenant and the Abysmal Covenant, which apparently 13 individuals have those two, which we assume the Abysmal one is for the five elders, and the other 8 are the Depths Covenant, which is a bit surprising, which basically confirms that Emu has 13 subordinates, which makes you wonder, does that mean Luffy is going to get 13 major subordinates? Is Blackbeard going to get, like, say, 13 major subordinates? Because these seem to be like the forces that are going to parallel the parallel each other with the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard and the World Slash of Dragons of like the three final forces of the war of the arc, of the saga, if you will. Granted, that does make me curious, since Oda has often betrayed the Guards Knights of having like 9 members, or at least I think from what most people said, there seems to be at least 9, but that could be mistaken. But granted, I guess if there's like the devoted blades, it could be that one of those Guards Knights was a devoted blade, but it is interesting at the very least. But we know that Emu at least has 13 top subordinates under him. And the closer you get, the more you get to reach to communicate with him. At the moment, Hal, being a devoted blade, does not give him the right to interact with Emu just yet. So, which implies with the elders talking, implies that he could, if he climbs the ranks, which he may, which should very much heavily implies he might rise to that ranks at that point. This might be how Emu is able to dummy reverse Harold down the line, from what we can get hints onto the flashback at the beginning. But yeah. But it's nice to sort of learn the structure of the Guards Knights. And even if there's like mainly 13 subordinates, if you were under Emu, there is still like the option to allow these devoted blades, if you will, to join their ranks, at least be below, for at least some of the more minor side characters, I guess, because arguably, you're going to have like the Guards Knights and the 5 Elders battling various different factions of the Straw Hats and their allies, if I had to guess. And who knows, the top tier of like Luffy's allies and probably the top tier Straw Hats fighting the 5 Elders, the rest fighting the lower ranks of the Guards Knights. But there's also now some chance of devoted blades to go for the more minor side characters, if you will. So I think Oda is doing a good job of at least setting up an opponent for everybody at the very least, but we'll have to wait and see how he will take effect of that. But yeah. Anyway, it's interesting that we see a Oda Shamrock, Oda Garling, if you will. So and seeing that, which at this point he seems to become the commander of the Holy Knights. So granted, he might have I think he was more or less commander of the Holy Knights before, but it seems he's gone in more in status. He looks a bit younger he looks a bit more like he does when he's older, but he's still seems a bit of youth in him, if you will. So he's not quite yet an elder just quite yet. Granted, he's looking like a bit more of that, like a tough guy, if you will. Granted, some people probably still think that he's a bit of a fraud from the events of God Valley, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm pretty certain that Oda's probably going to set something up with Garling, to show that he's a tough guy, but we'll just have to wait and see in that regards. So, yeah. But I do like how he's basically telling Hal that we'll call you when we need you and all that stuff and all that. But yeah. But I do like how this chapter also gave us a chance to sort of explore Harold's relationship with like the fishmen, if you will, because we know he went and saw the fishmen and saw Neptune as a baby, but it seems like over the years they grew up as Neptune grew up. Let's see, he seemed to become a friend of them, and it makes sense. But we've got a comment here from Ice Cream Gaming YouTube saying win One Piece, W One Piece, which if that's a win, yeah, win for One Piece, if you will. So, yeah, thanks for that comment. So, yeah. So, But it is nice to see that, okay, it seems like even though he once saw Neptune as a baby, he got in touch later and they became friends, and makes sense that the two non-human royals that we know, kings if we know, would probably try and bond and make friendship, since both of them are trying to, like, in their own way, but foster better relations with humans. And also they're both, well, giants, if you will, or abnormally big even for their own species. So yeah, I do like that. But it is interesting how they end up talking about their kids. And the surprising thing is that Neptune is offering his daughter Shirahoshi to marry Loki, which I will admit I can probably probably agree with Harold. And let's see, Loki is probably too destructive for, like, a wife, if you will. Though it is interesting because we know that Loki apparently proposes to Lola at some point, so I'm curious if we're going to get that explanation. Let's see if he's trying to marry if, like, his father's setting him up to marry Shirahoshi. Granted, I know there's going to be some controversy about that, because we know that in the current timeline, Shirahoshi is like 16 and Loki's like in giant years in his 20s, maybe 30s, if you will. Though, granted, I will see, this is probably not the very uncommon when it comes to, like, royal marriages, if you will, where, like, monarchies, let's see, would have, like, a bit of an age gap between each other, if you will. Heck, let's see, so Eclipse the Crown, I believe Prince Charles was like 30 and Princess Diana was 19 when they got engaged, which I know, let's see, some would say that's a bit sketchy in some regards, but from what I can tell, it's not that uncommon for, like, royals to, like, have a bit of an age difference, but that's a whole other conversation that I'd rather not get into. But it is interesting how, depending on the translation, let's see, Howard brings up, when Neptune talks about how she'll be quite big and disruptive, from what the prophet goes on about how sounds like she'll be a bit shaggy, like you with Neptune. But, like, my daughter's not shaggy, but we know that, depending on, like, the translation, I think it's Moser in the wiki, or in the Japanese translations. Hold on, let me just Moser. Let's see, interestingly enough, Howard is referring to, like, this jokey nickname to, like, Shirahoshi and or Moser, depending on the translation, to like Shirahoshi. So this seems to imply that Shirahoshi might be that friend that Loki's been communicating with. We don't know if that's necessarily the case, but if that's the case, how was she secluded for so many years that she was able to get a communication with Loki? Clearly, that might just be a bit of a red herring that Oda's misdirecting us, but we'll clearly need some more answers. But I am curious that now that this revelation about Loki and Shirahoshi possibly being engaged, I wonder if that will lead down to some storylines later, and see if this will have an effect on the world of One Piece, if you will. Or it might imply that Loki will have a bigger role than outside of Elbaf than we're led to believe, if he's perhaps helping Shirahoshi fulfill her destiny, if you will, of using her Poseidon powers to help save the One Piece world, if you know, world, or even the Fisherman people, depending on which theory you believe in when it comes to using Shirahoshi's powers. So, yeah. Anyway, other than that, hold on a second. I just need to refill my throat with water. Anyway, it's also interesting that we actually also get to see Soul here. Though, granted, I will admit I'm a little disappointed about how quick it went. being let into Elbaf and then being asked to teach a school. Nice to see that in the flashback. Granted, I was curious. I was curious to see if Saul would have, when Saul coming in, that would have gone away for him to explain some of the more dark aspects of the government, particularly at O'Hara. But nope, that didn't seem to be brought up. But I guess of him trying to warn Ritzy Howard about what happened to the people of O'Hara, if that make him have second doubts, but it doesn't seem that's going to be the case here. Nevertheless, it's nice to see the events and see that Howard asked him specifically to help build a school, if you will, and teach kids and all that stuff. So nice to see that, if you will, which I think we already probably know, but it's nice to actually end up actually properly seeing it. So, yeah. But anyway, I think one thing that everyone's probably going to be talking about is Shanks being like a holy knight. Now, granted, I know people sometimes been calling Shanks a rat when we first saw what I think everyone now thinks is Shamrock posing as Shanks in the Reverie or Reverie arc, if you will. But it's clear that he's just Ritzy putting on for Cade. He's sounding like a typical sport world noble brat being Rooty Van Howard. But I think we all know that he's clearly playing a ruse because he needs to do something here in the Holy Land first before he can Ritzy and get that information or whatever he needs to try and, do whatever his goals are, which I think many people are theorizing he's trying to find the Nika Devil Fruit and give it to possibly Ace, but while that part went nearly, Ritzy didn't need to be screwed up. The plan with the Devil Fruit, of course, Ritzy got screwed up because Luffy ate it rather than Ace, but of course Shanks thinks that's probably for the best, but yeah, in the end. But yeah, we of course see that Shanks, unlike it's interesting to see that Shanks, unlike Doflamingo, was welcomed back into the arms of the world nobles, if you will. Being accepted, if you will, which is could be a bit of a deep contrast to Doflamingo, as he was rejected due to the fact he had his father's blood in his veins. It seems the world government was willing to forgive Shanks for being a pirate for 24 years. If he's come back into the fold, which I will admit he does a good job of pretending to be this world noble who would just fall off the sky and he didn't see hates the world and all that stuff and wondered why he's so special until now, if you will. So I do like how he does that, and I even like seeing let's see Shamrock seemingly to show some concern for Shanks, particularly about the wound that he's gotten for Whitebeard. So we do know that Blackbeard, he ended up scarring him. Let's see, at some point just before this, if you will. So I think the timeline's getting a bit more clear on that and who ultimately in the end did what that he or she did. But yeah. So I do like the sort of act that Shanks is playing, which arguably probably for him, he's just feels like he's probably staring into a dark mirror when he sees his brother. But I do like that Shamrock seems to show some care until down the line he realizes that his brother chose to stay in the lower world. It despises him for it, but yeah. But one thing I probably will have to make some comments on is the fact that we've got Fisher Tiger being freed with Shanks, but yeah, it's pretty obvious that Shanks is the one that freed him, which arguably I think this part of the flashback is basically there to show and confirmation that Shanks might wondering how was Fisher Tiger able, while arguably strong for a pirate captain, if you will, how was he able to take on the Holy Knights if they're supposed to be this top secret organization of the Five Elders? And it turns out Red Sea Fisher Tiger got help by Shanks to get the army and all that stuff to begin his raid and save the slaves. Now, so I think we finally got an explanation for that. It's like, okay, someone helped Fisher Tiger break loose and get the army, and that someone is Shanks, who gives him all the advice on what to do. So, Granted, my only real complaint about this is that, okay, now that let's see, Shanks has done this, and we've seen Fisher Tiger. Was he a slave at first, and then got freed by Shanks, and then took all the armory, or did he got free first, then went down to Fishman Island to tell the royals what he's going to do, and then come back up and all that stuff. But which that's how the story goes. But from the way this is going on, it seems like he was freed, then he started doing his prison riot, rather than like he was freed and then freed himself and then went back to try and help the slaves. I'm not sure if Oda is forgetting his continuity here or retconning that a bit, try and fit more in the story with the Shanks, but maybe he hasn't really properly explained. Let's see, thought out and not really properly explained it to us yet. But granted, the moment Fisher Tiger, pardon me, does look a bit like a slave that just broke free, rather than like someone that's coming back to do a rescue mission. But I know it's a minor nitpick, but at the very least it explains what happened with the guards, knights, and all that when he did his rampage across that to free other slaves. But speaking of slaves, I love how we got to see like a hold on. Guess I did not record that image, or it's not among this pile, but not aboard this pile, if you will. But it's sort of like hold on. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. It's affecting my performance. Now we see the Hancock sisters, if you will. And now we have seen like all... sorry, it took me a while to just realize what image I was looking for. We've now seen all 4 generations of pirate emperors that we know of actually in the same flashback, which, yeah, nice to see that and all that stuff. So it's kind of a bit insane to think that we'd see all 4 pirate empresses, 2 of which played somewhat of a large or minor role in God Valley. So, or at least to trigger the events of that. So, yeah, it's and also seeing the one that came out before, Bo Hancock, who died from a love sickness, to now actually seeing Bo Hancock as we get closer and closer to the main timeline. So, yeah, that was nice to sort of see, if you will. But of course, the main point is the fact that this chapter is basically about Ida and her sons, and it turns out Ida is dying, which I think we all kind of had a feeling that this might end up being the case because, well, if you're a nice mother in One Piece, Oda will probably, kill you off because, mothers apparently they're death adventure or something. But yeah, it is kind of tragic that this Ida did not get to live, to see her sons grow up, if you will. But probably it's best that she didn't learn the fate of King Harold, since everyone thinks that Loki killed him, which probably would have led to Ida wondering where did she go wrong, and I'm trying to help Loki and all that stuff. But if it was to kill her own father. But I do like how the giant doctor's trying to get her to take the thing and all that, but she's trying to do the best she can to move on with her work. But everyone that's there tries to insist that she doesn't, particularly Mato, who would eventually take over Ida's pub, if you will. But it is nice to learn that Howard Sue seems to love Ida, requesting that he be allowed to marry and become his new queen, if you will, which it seems like the elders have basically forbidden that. So, yeah. But yeah. But Ida is just fine just being a bartender and all that stuff. But yeah, I do like how we see both Loki and Hadruden trying to do their own way of helping, if you will. So with him bringing like meat for her and Howard just go and Hadruden going out to sea to try and find a doctor that will be able to help cure her. But of course, neither of course aware of the tragedy of like hold on. Here we are. But to learn that let's see that Estrid's family who and village were envious of the attention Ida's got, didn't want her to gain any of the wealth and fortune they believe is rightfully theirs. Try to get Loki on their side and saying, you agree with us, right? And then revealing what they did, which of course I do like how Loki gets so outraged by this that he causes a rampage, and you can actually see that, and it actually does confirm that Loki does actually like Ida as his mother and views her as a mother, and also does actually still remember how his biological mother still treated him to the point where he doesn't mind, I think, snapping the neck of this giant, maybe killing him. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see if we see this guy again in a flashback. But, you know, Oda and like killing off characters in flashback, even some bad ones. But who knows? I could be wrong in that regard. But yeah. Now people have been calling Loki a bit of a tsundere kind of thing when it comes to like Ida. We just have to wait and see whether or not like Luffy were able to mend whatever pain or rage that's inside Loki's heart, but who knows? It could very well be that Luffy becomes Loki's first true friend, if you will, which we sometimes see that in chapters of One Piece, but yeah. So I do like how the people of Estris village got so angry thinking that Loki be on their side, not realizing that she treated Loki poorly, and Ida's been always there, and you do love how she talks about her, like, these are my two sons, so it's like props to Loki, I guess, but of course, this is probably bound to get him in trouble, as he's probably not supposed to cause a rampage in his own village, but yeah, at the very least, it's the Estrid's family's getting their just desserts, but at least the ones that are being all greedy and all that stuff. But yeah, but yeah. Overall, I'd probably give this chapter a 7 to 8 out of 10. It's good seeing how try and gain that favor of the world government, where he eventually becomes like God's Knight's blade of steel, if you will. So we've got a bit of hierarchy of the God's Knights, and as well as the connection with Emu, with like the Abyss transform teleportations, if you will. Seeing the rise of like pirates causing like the new giant warriors to enlist in the Marines, stuff like that, and let's see, trying to think, what else? Oh yeah, seeing Loki shown to actually do care for Ida. The only real downside is like this is probably another dead mother fringe trope, if you will, and some of the dialogues, I guess, off there, and it's how it's taking the pace a while, but also some continuity issues, I feel, with like explanations that I think they tried to do, but definitely didn't work. I think when one time when you got Bill Nye coming in as a cameo about something, but I can't quite remember what it was. Or I forgot. Sorry, I'm just starting to lose my train of thought, but oh yeah, well, we got explanations on how Fisher Tiger was helped by Shanks. There's still explanation of like, did Shanks help him just as he was escaping Miraja or as he was coming back in? So yeah, those issues still need to be addressed. But at the moment, I'd say this is a pretty good chapter, and yeah, 7 or 8 out of 10. I hope everyone else who was watched or listened to this review, Etsy agrees with what I have to say and all that stuff. And Thank out to like Ice Cream Gaming UT. Thank you for your one comment. And for those who end up listening to this review, I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. Sorry that my voice and cold is being that, and given how late it is, I'm starting to sort of falter a bit. But I hope everyone enjoys this chapter of One Piece, and I look forward to reviewing the next one next time I see you all. But for now, I'm Blue Star Saber, signing off. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.